Now that you have all of your pieces sanded, drilled, and ready to put together, you are going to need, once again, your framing square, your ruler, the bottle of glue for your station. You also, once again, will probably need a pencil or a pen, and you're going to need, from the back, and your instructor will point out where these are located, but you're also going to need what is called a clamp. Now the way the clamp works, this is the release. Right here at the top, there's two triggers. The top one is the release. It lets it slide and close open. This handle one puts the pressure on. Your instructor will demonstrate when and how you will use these. You're also going to need a couple of paper towels and your computer logged in. With your computer logged in, you're going to be watching this video. You're also going to need an additional web page, which is online stopwatch. So if you go to Google and you simply type in online stopwatch. So right here I go online stopwatch. I like to use the large screen. You can use this one right here, or if you go down, you'll see one right here and it says online stopwatch, use online full stopwatch. That's the one I like to click on. In here, you can create a timer once it loads up. So you can either use a stopwatch or you can do a countdown. If you want to do a countdown, you simply type in, we're going to be holding for 5 minutes. So I'm going to go 500, set, and then when I'm ready, I can hit start. We're going to start with your pieces D and your pieces C. You'll have some tape that you have on there. You're going to be pulling this tape off, but first, we're going to identify which side we want to be the front, which side we want to be the back. On the front, I'm going to write an F for front, right? Over here, I'm going to write a B for the back of the catapult. So I have front and I have back. From the front side, you're going to measure, before you take these apart, 5 1/4 inches, and you're going to make a mark. You're then going to take your framing square, holding it flush against that edge like always. You're going to draw a nice straight dark line across at 5 1/4. Later on, we're going to need to know which side to put this on, so we're going to go to the X and put it on the outside. So I have an X, so 5 1/4, and then to the right of that, I have an X. I then am ready to take the tape off of these pieces. So I'm going to go ahead, peel that tape off. This tape will end up going in the trash can. Make sure that's where it ends up. Right now I'm going to set mine off to the side. I'm then going to do the same for my piece D. I'm going to take all the tape off of it. Once again, this tape would end up in the trash can. Now, we're going to be gluing these two pieces together. So I have the front, I'm just going to simply slide that piece down. The D's are going to go right in between it, and then I'm going to glue it down just like such. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have my F for the front pointing forward. One of the things you want to pay attention to is you should have a nice smooth side and kind of a rough side. I want to make sure, if I have the smooth side facing up like I currently do, that my other two pieces have the smooth side facing up as well. Once I know I have the correct sides facing up so they're going to be the same height, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open my glue. You're going to simply pull straight up. Okay? It simply pulls straight up. Sometimes there might be a little glue crusted in there. And if you push down, you can kind of pop that off at the end of the bottle. But as long as it lets it come out, you can always take your ruler or another tool, there we go, and scrape that little glue off. Then I'm ready to put my glue on. When I put the glue on, I want a small amount. It is not going to be very much. So if I go like this, right, and I have a small amount on that end, and I do the same on the other side. You want a light amount of glue. You're then going to take this other piece, you're going to rub those two ends together, and you should have a light amount of glue on those ends. If you have a big puddle that's dripping off, you have too much glue and you need to wipe some of that off. You want just enough to hold it together. If you put too much on, it's not going to add strength. It's just going to take longer to dry and make it actually weaker in the long run. You're then going to line these up together. So I'm making sure the ends are flush on both sides. Now you have to be patient, because what you're going to do is you're going to hit start and you're going to hold for 5 minutes. So you're going to be a human clamp, making sure your pieces are even and that they're flush to the table by holding it for 5 minutes. So you're going to watch that counter count all the way down to 5 minutes. As you've been holding and it gets down to the end, it's going to start flashing. It will then simply make a noise telling you to reach the end. You can let go and you can hit clear, and when you do, it will take you back to 5 minutes. So I hit clear and it goes back to 5 minutes. We're now going to put 2 clamps on it and hold it for another 5 minutes with the clamps. To do that, you're going to loosen up the adjustment, the release lever, bring it in fairly tight, making sure that you keep it nice and even and that it doesn't shift on you. You're then going to take one, because it's going to want to tip off the table, go the opposite direction, and this is where sometimes it might help to have your partner help you. And you're going to clamp the other side down, once again making sure that your pieces are still flush and even and flat. Now, before we hit the timer for this 5 minutes, we're going to work on gluing one of our piece B arms on. So we're going to take the tape, we're going to peel that off. Make sure you pay attention, noticing that one side says left, and if you haven't done so, make sure you mark one side R for right, one side L for left. If you haven't done so, before you take it apart from the tape, mark a left side and a right side. Right's going to go over here, left's going to go over here. We're going to start with either side. I'm going to start with the left so you can see it. Actually, yeah, I'll start with the left so you can see it. So once again, I'm going to put a little bit of glue just simply right down here where it meets. And if I want, so I know where I need to put glue, I can hold this flush up against there, and I can draw a line across the back. So I know I'm going to put glue right here. Once again, I want just a light coat. So I'm going to simply put a light coat on there. If I would happen to get too much, so if you think you got too much, simply take a paper towel, wipe some of it up, and then put it on. I'm going to put it to the side that I made the X on, and I'm going to simply push down so I'm flat against the table, and then I'm going to push it right up against that piece. So while these clamps are holding, I'm going to hold, and if I want, I can come back and I can check to make sure I'm standing straight up by using my square, and I can come right up against that angle, and I can make sure that I'm holding that piece nice and straight. If I am, I can move that off to the side, and I'm just going to continue to hold. So I'm going to hit the timer, and I'm going to go for 5 minutes. Now once again, as you've been holding for 5 minutes with your one hand, you'll see the timer getting counted down. Once it gets to 0, you can go ahead and unclamp the 2 side pieces. So I'd go ahead and unclamp that side, I'd unclamp this side. You're going to be putting a clamp, so I'd hit clear, I'm back to my 5 minutes. You're going to put a clamp on this piece. And it might be stuck to the paper towels, that's fine, you simply pull it up. But you're going to put a clamp on this side, and then I'm going to put the glue, or I'm going to glue the other piece over to the other side. When I go to the right, remember you wrote your initial, the right? That means the hole is going to line up on this side, so the R is facing out. and I'm going to glue it right over here on this side. Say line up. You can use your arm and lay it across the two pieces to make sure that they're even. So if you see a gap, you know you're not lined up and even. They should be flush all the way across. So when I go to glue, I can hold that piece in there to make sure that I'm even. But I'm going to start by putting a clamp on this piece that I've been holding for 5 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring that clamp in. I'm going to put a clamp, making sure it's not sticking past it, on there. Now it's going to want to tip over, so you just got to be careful with that. You can always use your piece E to kind of help hold you up a little bit. So I can kind of slide that forward, and that'll help hold that piece up. I'm then going to go ahead, take my B, once again make sure I'm paying attention that the holes are matching. So I got my L here, my R's on this side, so it's going to go out. So once again, I can push that flush and flat. I can take my pencil, so I know where I need to put glue at, right down there. I put a light bead of glue on that end. Once again, if I get too much, I could take a paper towel, but it should just be a small amount of glue. I'm then going to go ahead and make sure I'm holding this down and flat. I'm going to put this one right over here. I can double check that my pieces are even by using this piece, so I know I'm straight across from each other. And I once again can make sure using the square that I'm standing straight up and down. I then would go ahead and hit my timer. And so I can see my timer is going. I once again would hold for 5 minutes. And once again, I can check to make sure I'm even occasionally by holding these two pieces with the arm. And then I can just double check as I'm holding that I'm straight up and down. And you'll simply hold for 5 minutes. Now once again, once you've been holding for 5 minutes, your timer will be going off. So I'm still holding with my left hand. Once the timer gets to 0, you'll simply clear it out again. You then can unclamp this side, and we're going to clamp the other side. So I simply will move this piece over. I'm going to slide that clamp down and on. Once again, make sure that it's not moving it or popping it off. If you need to, you can always lower this down so it sits on your piece E, just to help balance it out. Now, I'm going to move that back just a little bit so it's just right up against that edge, because I'm going to use that while that's clamping. So I got that ready to go. I'm going to work on getting these top pieces clamped in and ready to go at the same time. So before I start the timer, I'm going to put this clamp on, and we're going to be hand gluing the top. And I'm going to kind of turn it a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. You have your piece A. You're going to take your piece A and you're going to put it across the front. Now, depending on sanding, other features such as the thickness of this, if it got cut a little thicker, it might not reach all the way to the edge. If that's the case, it's okay. What I want you to do is I want you to make a mark down here at the bottom, so you can see mine's a little short on both sides. When I get to the top, I want to make sure I kind of keep that same distance out. So right now I could take the ruler and I could say, okay, on mine, that one's about 1/8 of an inch, or 2 little lines. So I'm going to come up to the top and I'm going to make a mark 2 little lines in. I'm going to check the other side, and I got about the same, so I'm going to come out here and I'm going to mark just 2 little lines in. Okay, so when I go to glue these pieces on, I want to keep that even with those edges, so I'm going to keep that right in there like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the tape off. This one's a little bit tricky. We're going to try to glue both pieces on at the same time. So we're going to go like this, and we're going to glue and we're going to hold the top. Okay, so we're going to try to glue it as best we can, holding both top pieces at the same time. So to do that, I'm going to put a little bit of glue, and once again, if you want, you could always hold this piece in here like this, and you can draw a little line, just so you know where you need to put glue, and you can just simply trace that line across. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little bit of glue on this side, a little bit of glue on that side. All right, and once again, if you want, you could always push those two pieces together, just kind of push that glue around, and you're going to get just a small amount of glue on there. You do not need a ton. I'm going to go ahead and start on the timer. I'm going to come to the top, and I'm going to make sure I'm flush and I'm even. And this is sometimes where you might need your partner to help you get it set up. Once I get it flush and even as best I can, and it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but I want it close, I'm then going to simply go ahead and I'm going to pinch and hold like this for 5 minutes. And I'm going to simply glue and hold for 5 minutes. As you've been holding, and once again you get to 5 minutes, you can go ahead and let go. You'll clear your timer. You can take the bottom clamp off. We're now going to clamp the top, and once again you want to be careful because it's going to try to tip over on you. But I'm going to put one clamp on one side, and this is where sometimes it might help to have your partner, but don't go squeezing it too tight yet. Get the other one on there. Then go ahead and clamp them together so you don't accidentally put uneven pressure and pop it off. You'll tighten these two up together. Once again, hitting start on the timer. You'll let that clamp for 5 minutes. Now, while the timer's going down, and mine's almost all the way down, you can go ahead and make sure the glue bottle is closed. You can kind of clean off that glue, that way you're not having to scrape any off like we did at the beginning of the video. When the timer hits 0, you'll go ahead and clear. You can unclamp because it's now been held for 5 plus 5 makes 10 minutes, right? Repeatedly on all these different pieces. So this has been glued for 10, this has been glued for 10, this has now been glued for 10. It's going to be fairly solid. Like I said before, you might have some stuck to the paper, that's fine. It should fit or sit. It should sit fairly flush, right? If you glued everything right. These should be nice and straight. If I take my arm, it should be nice and even across those. Before we go to glue the E's or get our arm ready to put in place, we're going to create some mortise and tenon joints by drilling and then filling with some dowels on these pieces and possibly a few other locations, but that'll be explained in the next video. Once we get those in place, we'll come back and we'll figure out the angle for our E's. We'll make another cut, little sanding, and then we'll glue these pieces in, and it'll just about be ready to start testing. But so once you've got all this glued, you're going to go ahead, watch the next video for laying out our mortise and tenon joints. Then we'll come back, finish up the E's, and gluing it together.